Do you fear or embrace change? Hi, I'm John Maclean, and this is my story. As a little boy, I loved to run fast, and I often dreamed of becoming a professional football player. My dream came true. But my life changed forever when I was hit by an 8-ton truck whilst cross-training for a triathlon. Dad was told by the doctor they didn't expect me to make it through the night. I survived, coming out of a coma 4 days later, but I was now an incomplete paraplegic. The clouds were dark and I was depressed. My father gave me inspiration. He said, "Son, how far can you go?" This was my turning point. I started to believe in myself again. How far could I go? I managed to go a long way. But once more, I needed to change. I'd always dreamed of walking again. After 25 years, I had to try something new, and I opened myself up to new treatments and therapies. The first steps were the hardest, often falling over. Each time, getting back up again. And with persistence, I grew stronger. The following year, I dreamed of finishing the triathlon I was training for 26 years ago, crossing the finish line holding hands with my wife and son. To get through the 30-kilometre bike ride and 10-kilometre walk, I needed support, physically with carbon fibre leg braces and emotionally with family and friends. And with their help, I walked across the line with Amanda and Jack. My dream came true. Change is important. Change strengthens us, challenges us. Change allows us to become who we ultimately want to be. So embrace it. What is your next change?
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. I'm John Williams, president of American Guest. As you just saw in this clip, we're very honored to have John Maclean all the way from Sydney, Australia. From your experiences, what advice would you have for all of us in trying to adjust to old routines in a new world?
Yeah, it is definitely different, and therefore that's where the change piece comes in and the reimagine. I think when we look about what's actually happening, there's also this view of perceived understanding. So therefore we can overcreate things in our minds. And therefore by being still and settled, and therefore looking at the landscape and then making a judgment call. So for me, as an example, training for a triathlon, then hit by a truck, getting in a coma, coming out of a coma a week later, and then I realized my landscape was very different. And therefore, how was I then going to play my cards, so to speak, given the new environment? So I realized it was really important just to manage that time in hospital, waiting for all those bones to reconnect, rejoin, and then spending that time in the spinal unit with a view of tomorrow's going to be a better day. And then over time, building on that. And eventually, I'll be able to get out of the hospital, which took 4 months. So pre-accident life was fantastic, running around, professional athlete, then having this catastrophic accident, call that a virus, and then coming through that difficult transition in hospital to eventually come back outside, to smell the fresh air, to see the green grass, to start to experience life again, and therefore ask some relevant questions of myself. Where to from here? So I started to realize I needed to change in a different direction, and therefore pre-accident was running around as an athlete, and now it was doing sport as a wheelchair athlete.
You were mentioning before about how you were this athlete and you were running around, and then you had your catastrophic accident. And for like you were referring to before, COVID is our catastrophic accident for the rest of us. And keeping that motivation and keeping that focus, how have you been able to do that?
A great question. So the first thing for me, given that I traveled globally, that had just stopped. So therefore, what am I going to do? What is my next step? And I realized it's time to reach out to the organizations that I had relationships with, just to say, hey, I'm here if I can help. I want to share with you a short animation on change, open that up to Q&A, which then led to me putting a handbook together. How did I manage change? Put that methodology in place, change a constant challenge title, and therefore starting to go, what else can I do with what I have? So I started to invest more time with myself, going for a walk or going for a wheel, just stopping and breathing and appreciating. So that would be maybe looking at a tree, really slowing everything down.
What advice would you have for reimagining the travel and hospitality industry and for us to get people to do that again? Because they've been pretty much trained not to for these past 10 or 11 months. Any advice you have?
I guess it's just looking at things differently. So as an example, to reimagine, one minute I was a football player, I had to reimagine to become, a triathlete, reimagine to become a long distance swimmer, etc., etc. So it's just reframing what you have access to make it look a little bit different than what it was.
Your personal mantra is only possibilities. Was that something that was from your playing days, or is that something that you've relied upon to keep you motivated, post your accident?
I'll tell you that transition wasn't when I was playing football, but after my accident, there was this labeling effect, and therefore, having a spinal cord injury under the banner of being disabled or handicapped, I think is the language in the US.
Right.
I really struggled with that. So therefore, I went with, well, no, I don't see myself as having a disability, and therefore, what can I do to inspire kids in wheelchairs and to see myself as being equal? And therefore, only possibilities was then which I still have my wristband, was then my mantra.
Next time I get to Sydney, I'm going to pick one up.
Yes, or I can send one to you, John. It's it's nice to be able to say, let's look at the world as there are opportunities for all of us all the time. So let's look for those possibilities and take them on.
If there was one piece of advice or one message that you would like to leave with the audience today about yourself or about the situation we're all trying to come out of today, what would be that message you'd like to share with everyone?
Yes, I think it's really, really important to breathe, really slow down. Take some time for your mental and your physical health just to put yourself at ease. A lot of people are very anxious at the moment, so to manage that, it's just about being really present. And if you're able to do that, therefore that's that balance between taking that first step to running a marathon or taking that first step to running a business. So I think it's really important to balance those. Make sure you're looking after your mental health and your physical health to put yourself in the best position to take on whatever life throws at you.
Without further ado, John, thank you again for joining us. I bid you, the best in good health, and for all my friends and yourself there in Australia, thank you again.
Thank you, John.